that I do is double check that everybody has turned in the Unit 9 assessment and the Unit 9 document. Those are the last things going into the grade book. You heard? Yes? Good? Okay, so that'll be just kind of a grade check thing, making sure everybody's got that stuff turned in. Then what else are we going to be doing? We've got a quick brain pop video that I want to watch, and it's kind of surrounding this theme of navigating digital information. Okay. How do you know how to fact check a tweet or a rumor or something that you've heard of? It's, can be kind of confusing from time to time. Okay, and then we're going to finish up with something I like to call the 6 categories of music. How does that sound, kids? Good? Yes? You guys have got that look in your eye like you know it's the last week of school and you just want to get through this. Is that accurate? Yeah? Oh, boy. All right. So let's go right to the Brain Pop video right now, and we'll get attendance all taken care of. How many of you came in today not knowing that today was an odd day? You dweebs. All right. Oh, boy. It's going to be one of those days, I think. Okay.
Whoa. Ah! Moby! Have you been going online without your special glasses? Dear Tim and Moby, I know I can't believe everything I see and read, but how do I know what to trust? From Melody. Yeah, there's a ton of information we need to sort through these days. Most kids spend more than half their waking hours consuming media. That's any form of communication that reaches many people at once. Websites and magazines, games and TV shows, it's all part of the media. It also includes any advertisement you see or hear. All this stuff is a constant part of our environment today. Yes, it is wonderful. But you have to remember that these messages don't come out of nowhere. They're each made by someone, and that means they always have a purpose. These goals are often hidden, and they may not be in your best interest. So it's a good idea to be skeptical or doubtful. That doesn't mean that news and social networks aren't fun or useful, but you have to understand their goals to judge their credibility. That's how trustworthy you think a message is. A rave review of a blockbuster sequel? Not so fast. The people that own the magazine also run the studio that made the movie. They own the fast food places serving those Hungry Maze meal deals. And they even have a gaming company to make Hungry Maze apps. Yeah, connecting those doubts makes you realize all media has a particular point of view. They speak with a bias, a slant on how they see the world. Even serious news outlets have biases. Editors choose which stories to run and how they're reported. Even if they're trying their best to avoid bias, personal views will always influence these stories. No one can be completely impartial, not even us. But you don't need special glasses to get to the truth. You just have to ask some questions. Like, what's the message of this piece of media? Who created it? What biases might they hold? And what effect do they hope their message will have? Finding the answers can help decode the media all around us. Ads are often the easiest to read. You already know the intended effect, that you buy something. But advertisers use all kinds of subtle tricks to get you to do that. They might obscure who's behind the product, or hide the fact that it's an ad at all. For instance, product placement puts popular brands inside movies and shows. And traditional ads have dozens of ways to make the product seem more appealing. First, almost every image is altered or changed. Pimples are erased, waists are slimmed, and teeth are whitened. Backgrounds are changed to look more interesting. Media images can make it seem like we all look the same way. But people come in all colors, shapes, and sizes. Some ads use scientific claims or statistics. The claims may be true, but there's often more to the story. Other ads work by connecting products with celebrities or cute mascots. You know some genes can't make you rich and famous, but the connection works on a subconscious level. Next time you're shopping, you'll be more likely to buy that brand. If you question what you see, you can break these connections. It's not just advertising. All media use similar strategies to grab your attention. Like the stories in your newsfeed. They use sensationalism, shocking or exaggerated language, to convince you to click. Social media is flooded with sensationalist stories. And everything you read, write, and share is traced. It's called data tracking, and networks use it to send you similar posts. Following the same kinds of stories all the time can really distort your view of the world. So it's smart to get news from a variety of sources. You'll expose yourself to ideas and topics you might otherwise miss. I know it can feel overwhelming, but you can't hide from the media. You just have to learn to read the messages, like how we learn to read books. That's what media literacy is all about. Well, in your case, I guess you can just keep wearing these. No. Huh.
Okay, one of the last things that we're going to do, kind of whole group here, folks, is we're going to talk about navigating digital information. Now, in a typical school year, this would have been a much bigger part of the civics curriculum, but you know, we had to kind of hit those standards, and we didn't get to spend as much time on this as I really would hope to. Okay, if those of you that are familiar with, anybody familiar with John Green Crash Course, that stuff, a little bit, okay. Addicted to his videos. He does a tremendous job at giving an awesome amount of information in like these 12-minute videos. And he did like first for U.S. history, and then it kind of expanded. His brother like took on the math and science ones, and they're just phenomenal. Okay, but anyway, one thing that they did last year was they started a curriculum called Navigating Digital Information. Okay, I don't mean to disagree with the former president, but fake news is not something that he termed or that he created. Okay, fake news has been around much longer than all of us. You guys got me? Okay. And navigating that, especially in the digital world, can be very, very, very tough. Okay, because it's really hard to tell, because a lot of people just assume that doing research means Googling something and coming up with the response. Well, if Google is showing you the responses that it knows you want to see, that can be really, really hard. That can be really, really hard. And, you know, quite often your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed will simply show the stories that it knows you want to see. Well, then what the heck do we do? Okay, how do we navigate through that? How do we sift through it? Okay, well, there's a video series that I'm just going to show you the first video of today. Okay, called Navigating Digital Information, the first one, and I think it barely scratches the surface on lateral reading. So like when you see something and you're kind of questioning whether or not you agree with it or whether you think or not it's true, what the heck do you do to try to fact check that? Okay. Secondly, if you guys really get into this, I fully urge you to like watch more of the videos as you go through your academic career. Have you guys ever been told by a teacher not to use Wikipedia? okay? I would disagree with those teachers that have told you that. Wikipedia, although anybody can contribute to it, it's really, really hard to change something on Wikipedia now. Did you know that? It's hard. Now, I'm not saying that Wikipedia is the end-all, be-all, but it's an awesome place to start if you don't know anything about a topic. Does that make sense? Wikipedia employs more fact checkers than you could imagine. And those workers are tirelessly working on making sure that those things stay checked, okay, as you go through. So I'm not saying to send your teachers my way if they don't want you to use Wikipedia. And Wikipedia shouldn't be your only resource when you're researching something. But like I said before, it's an awesome place to start. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so I'm going to show you this video, okay, and we'll kind of go from there.
Information. My name is John Green, and you may know me from my various channels on YouTube, my all-caps tweets about Liverpool Football Club, Q&As about my books on my website, or elsewhere on the internet. I spend a lot of time online. In fact, in some ways, I live here. The average American spends 24 hours per week online, but 1 in 4 US adults say that they are online almost constantly. And I am among them. I love the internet. It contains so much helpful information. It connects us to each other. It allows more people to have a voice in public conversations. But of course, the internet is also littered with misleading, sensationalized, and downright false information. So okay, I only know 2 jokes. I'll tell the other one at the end of the series, but here's the first one, which was made famous by the American writer David Foster Wallace. 2 young fish are swimming along one day when an older fish swims past and says, "Morning, kids. How's the water?" The young fish just look at each other for a second and then swim on for a while. And then one says to the other, "What the heck is water?" Now, I am not the wise old fish of this enterprise. I am as susceptible to misleading information as anyone. I tend to focus on information that reinforces my pre-existing worldview and to passively ingest all kinds of media while scrolling and swiping endlessly through my feeds. But I also think we ought to be suspicious of anyone who claims to be the wise old fish with some special understanding of what we're swimming in. Believing that you're immune to the seductions of false and misleading information is, if anything, a symptom of being influenced by false and misleading information. But I tell that joke for 2 reasons. First, because I need you to call me out if I start acting like the wise old fish. And second, to point out that much of what we're swimming in is new and strange, and we are still figuring it out together. So for this series, Crash Course has teamed up with MediaWise, a project out of the Poynter Institute that was created with support from Google. The Poynter Institute is a nonprofit journalism school, and the goal of MediaWise is to teach students how to assess the accuracy of information they encounter online. The MediaWise curriculum was developed by the Stanford History Education Group based on civic online reasoning research that they began in 2015. Other MediaWise project partners include the Local Media Association and the National Association for Media Literacy Education. I'm saying all of that, and I'll say it again, because I think it's important to understand where this information about information came from. Over the next 10 episodes, we're going to dive deeply into the feed and share some tools that are proven to work when it comes to evaluating the quality and accuracy of information. We may not figure out exactly what water is, but we're gonna try to learn to improve our swimming. Stan, have we rolled the intro yet? We're like multiple minutes into the video. Roll the intro. So when you want to see what your friends are up to, you might head to Snapchat or WhatsApp or Instagram or maybe Finstagram. I don't get that joke, but young people in the office said that it was funny. And then when you want the news, you may wait to be startled by a push alert from a news app, or you might go to Twitter or Snapchat or Reddit. And when you need to settle a feud over how to pronounce GIF or possibly GIF, you just use a search engine. These habits all feel quite natural to me, but in fact, they're part of a huge shift in how humans find and produce and share information. Just a short time ago, the production of information was controlled by a much smaller group of people. Instead of Googling movie times, you had to buy a newspaper or call the movie theater and risk talking to an actual human being. To write a research paper, you had to hunker down in the library, not for the outlets and free Wi-Fi, but for the access to encyclopedias and books. Now, I should note that there's a lot of information that is not available online and that is available at your library. Libraries continue to be incredibly valuable resources. But these days, anyone can hop online and produce information via their personal website or their social media or their YouTube channel. Well, actually, no. Access to digital devices and high-speed internet is still a real barrier to entry for many people, which means unequal access to information. It also means that while it can feel like everyone is participating in Facebook or Instagram, in fact, billions of people are not part of those conversations. Still, the barrier for creating and retrieving information is much lower than it was a generation ago. Like when I was a kid, if you wanted to share an opinion with the public, you wrote a letter to the newspaper and hoped they would publish it. There was no other way for a stranger to hear your story or your perspective. Furthermore, as you already know from the 3 DMs you've answered since you started this video, the internet changed how we communicate. We can talk across time and space. We can connect across geographical and political boundaries. We can create organizations and communities, find people with similar interests, or we can lift people up when they feel alone. But when information flows that freely, dangers are inevitable. Misinformation, unintentionally incorrect information, and disinformation, information that's wrong on purpose, spread quickly online, as do hate speech and propaganda. Plus, we can easily create online worlds where we only see information we already agree with or that lines up with our point of view. For instance, if I only followed people on Twitter who were Team Blake, I would have been pretty blindsided when Garrett won The Bachelorette. And the same could be said for, actual elections. And because we use information for all kinds of decisions, misinformation and disinformation are really powerful. This is true for small everyday decisions, restaurant reviews affect where we eat, and for much larger issues like choosing a college to attend or a place to work. The quality of our information directly shapes the quality of our decisions, and the quality of our decisions, of course, shapes the quality of our shared experience as humans. So when we talk about bad or questionable information, that includes fake news, the kind of news reporting that is totally false, which is a huge problem, especially on social media and during breaking news events, and it's a problem across all political ideologies and perspectives. But we're not just talking about fake news, we're also talking about information that isn't credible because the author of that content isn't an authority on the topic. Take a blog of serious-sounding fitness tips from someone who loves gym selfies but isn't qualified to give professional health advice. We're also talking about information that comes from writers or organizations that have something to lose from the whole truth, like a company that sells toasters creating besttoasters.com to publish lists of the best toasters with their brand at the top of every list. Or friends who conveniently find videos that supposedly prove that GIF is pronounced GIF when you know that GIF is pronounced GIF. But the thing is, quality of information lies on a spectrum. It's not a duality, good information and bad information. It is our job to evaluate the information that we receive, find out where it falls on that spectrum, and decide how to use it going forward. But as a species, we are not very good at judging the quality of information on the internet. In fact, we've always been bad at it. In 2002, a study with over 2,000 participants reported that a website's design was the most frequently mentioned factor in judging a website's credibility. When asked to choose which of two sites was more credible, 46% of participants used the look of the website in their evaluations. Adults and young people alike still typically evaluate information based on factors unrelated to its content, how it looks, whether they've used it before, or who referred them to it. In 2016, our friends at the Stanford History Education Group released a study of over 7,000 middle school, high school, and college students. When asked to evaluate online information, they based their evaluations on a site's look and feel. They focused on things that a website creator could easily change, like the URL or the About page. Spoiler alert, that technique doesn't work well. One of the things that participants had to do was judge minimumwage.com, a site about You guessed it, the minimum wage. It claimed to bust myths behind the minimum wage, listing ways that raising it would hurt the economy. Many students never discovered that that site was by a public relations firm working for a group that wants to keep minimum wages low. The firm represents industries that stand to benefit from paying employees less. In other words, the creator of this website has something to lose by telling both sides of the minimum wage debate, so we can't fully trust them to do so. All right, let's go to the thought bubble. During the study, some students also felt the presence of certain types of content on a website meant that it was more reliable. Like when students found something they thought was evidence on a page, a statistic or an anecdote perhaps, they assumed that meant the entire page was more reliable. And they often didn't check the sources because, you know, it's the internet. People never check sources. For example, participants also looked at an article that was actually an advertisement for Shell Oil. 70% of high school students rated it as more reliable than a traditional news story. Why? Because of this pie chart at the top. Statistics and infographics are often easy and effective ways to communicate facts and evidence, but that doesn't mean that all charts are trustworthy. Like here's another chart. It says that 96% of the time the sky is green. The existence of this chart is no more proof of its validity than, say, a spooky noise is proof that your house is haunted. But back to the Stanford History Education Group study, over 80% of middle school students didn't correctly identify that this was an ad either, even though it was labeled sponsored content. Sponsored content means a company paid the publication for a space on its site, hoping to advertise with a post that looks like a news article. And as you may know, sponsored content also shapes a lot of discourse on YouTube. And it's effective advertising because many of us can't help but believe that what looks like a news article must in fact be one. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So you might argue that the students in that study are still learning, and they'll probably get better at evaluating information when they get older. Well, the Stanford History Education Group also tested historians with PhDs, first-year college students from a pretty fancy university, and professional fact-checkers from major news organizations. Fact-checkers are the people who go through each bit of copy in a news story to make sure that all the facts are accurate. There are far too few of them in this world. But anyway, how effectively would you guess those three groups evaluated information quality? Although the professors and the college students have obviously achieved academic success and are smart, thoughtful people, they also didn't do well with the experiment. When evaluating online sources, they too focused on superficial things like the site's layout, how much content the site had, and whether it linked to other sites. They focused largely on appearance and the presence of things like evidence and links, not their content or their value. And those strategies might have worked to an extent in the early days of the internet, but things are much more complicated now, and there are many misleading or false stories that cite sources that either don't say what they're purported to say or are themselves also false. It's misinformation all the way down. So who did sort out the misinformation from the good info? The fact checkers. I mean, it is literally their jobs, but it's nice to know that they were good at it. The fact checkers did well because they employed a variety of carefully honed skills to decipher fact from fiction. And we're going to learn those skills together from the fact checkers in our next episode. Also the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. We're going to fact checker school. In the meantime, if you're interested in learning more about MediaWise and fact checking, you can visit @MediaWise on Instagram or just search for them. Thanks for swimming with me. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching Crash Course, which is filmed here in Indianapolis, Indiana, with the help of all of these nice people. For this series, Crash Course has teamed up with MediaWise.
Okay, so I know for a lot of you, you probably checked out like the first minute into it. And like I said, the thing that I love about John Green's videos is that he compacts so much information into that tight space. But hopefully at least one or two of you got enticed enough to look at this and go, I'd like to learn more about navigating digital information. And there are many more videos linked to this same video that you can learn more about it, okay? This is not something that I'm showing to you because you're a ninth grader or something that just because this is a civics class that I wanted to show you. I think all human beings need to spend more time fact checking and understanding how easy it is to put information out like digitally, okay? And you have to be able to sift through that because there are some very, very smart people that get caught up in this and, when you get, steamrolling in that mode of reinforcing your pre-existing like thoughts, that can really be a dangerous practice. And anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, and hopefully, one or two of you find that relatively interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop recording this session, and I am going to see if we have any questions